interested in a different cranberry sensation? Then you're going to love this Zesty Cranberry Steak Sauce. I do need to give you a heads up that while this tangy, savory condiment is perfection as steak sauce, you'll undoubtedly use this for any type of vegetable, sandwich bread, casserole, or crock pot meal. But before I share this recipe step by step and how to preserve it on your pantry shelf using a quick 15-minute water bath that doesn't require any special canning equipment, you've got to take a look at 7 meals you're probably already making that this sauce will transform. Let's start with breakfast. If you've never had a bacon, egg, and cheese cranberry steak sauce sandwich, I'm sorry.
If you're looking for a savory way to fuel your day, this hearty breakfast sandwich uses egg, bacon, and cheese as the base before being topped off with cranberry steak sauce to really pack things full of flavor. My preference is to slide an over-easy fried egg on top of melted white cheddar, brie, or Havarti cheese with a few slices of crispy bacon. Then spread a generous spoonful of cranberry steak sauce on lightly buttered toasted bread with a dollop of guac. When you go for your first bite, you'll realize this recipe is leaps and bounds better than the rich, gelatinous glob of cranberry sauce that comes in a tin can. This sandwich bursts with sweet tart cranberry flavor that was meant to mingle with bacon, warm bread, and cheese.
Clearly, this sandwich shows that I have a rebellious streak because I wholeheartedly disagree that cranberry sauce should only make its debut at your Thanksgiving or Christmas table, at dinner, or as lunch leftovers. How did that even become a thing? You should join my revolt. Liberate the cranberry. Up next are some lunch ideas you'll love.
I often take slow cooker cranberry meatballs and little smokies to church potlucks. Both kids and adults love it. It's also excellent as a heftier snack to leave on hand for my family when I'll be out of the house for a few hours. I'm telling you now that this sweet cranberry glaze was made for meatballs and smoked sausage. Paired with home fermented sauerkraut, this meal is a winner every time.
I know I'm dwelling on the meatballs and smokies, but y'all, they are so good.
I hope you can see how easy these are to make for a party, holiday, or game day gathering. Who needs to deal with a bunch of complicated recipes when you can make these crock-pot cranberry meatballs? The combination may seem odd to you, but it's a flavor mix-up you don't know you were missing until you've had it. Up next are cranberry turkey or beef burgers. Add more moisture, flavor, and nutrition to your burger prep by dolloping your patty with this cranberry sauce. Paired with melted cheese, good gracious, this burger is addictive. Avoid getting stuck in a bland or boring burger routine. With this sauce, you'll infuse caramelized onion flavor, a bit of spice from the chili flakes will add, and the mouth-watering combination of cranberries and pineapple goodness. With a spread like this on your shelf, you'll find it easy to create gourmet burgers right at home using ingredients you've controlled. Eating deliciously truly is affordable, fresh, and fun when you make it yourself and preserve enough to enjoy fast food without leaving the house because you have options right in your own pantry.
This sauce really shines at dinner time too.
Taco Tuesdays are permanently on the menu in our home, and this recipe combines sweet, smoky, and spicy all in one. Cranberry chipotle chicken enchiladas come together quickly with a jar of fully cooked home canned chicken, black beans, and classic Mexican ingredients. A major benefit to canning is that it gives you convenience without compromise. Over half of the ingredients in this recipe were sourced from my local farmer's market and preserved months ago right at home. After a busy day at work, canning allows me to put quality meals on the table I feel good about without spending tons of time in the kitchen. Once you've combined all of your ingredients in a large bowl, you'll add your spices and fold the filling into whole wheat tortillas. Before placing these into the oven, spread a topping of your cranberry sauce mixed with sour cream and sprinkle on cheese and cilantro. Bake until things are bubbly.
Now I have to pop in here because I realize that some of y'all might be like, Cassandra, cranberry sauce on tacos, I don't know. But it truly works. And y'all, admittedly, I am just a home cook. But you know what the cranberry steak sauce adds to this? It adds a little bit of a tang and a surprising taste that if you are a cook like me that uses Taco Tuesday as a staple meal to integrate like fish or chicken and something that's quick every single week into your menu plan so you don't have to think about it, after a while you have to start to think of ways to jazz it up, and this totally does it. I mean, y'all, it totally works. It works in the same way that like the sour cream is a little like zing to it. Totally, the cranberries do the same thing, but it's savory because it's adding like onion. Sorry to talk with my mouth full, but like onion and all the savory spices. If you're curious, do not skip over this recipe.
Because this sauce is good enough to eat straight out of the jar, I had to include a snacking option I enjoy when we have guests, paired with hot tea in the evenings or truly just at any time. Gingerbread goat cheese spread on top of crusty crackers with this spread is a taste sensation that'll leave you speechless. Definitely add it to your next charcuterie board. You'll just need 5 minutes to pull this sweet and savory baked chicken recipe together. Simply pour a jar of your zesty steak sauce over fresh leg quarters and bake until done. Dinner recipes don't get any simpler than this dump and bake cranberry chicken. By now, it goes without saying that this is superb on steak, paired with potatoes and barbecue slaw. You're ready for a fancy night in.
Y'all, that's only some of the ways you'll use this sauce. I told you it was a must-have. If this is our first time meeting, hi, I'm Cassandra from the blog becomingafarmgirl.com. I'm here to help you start canning and preserving right at home and show you ways to use your pantry and recipes your family will love. Now it's time to dive into the recipe, but don't worry about writing anything down. The link to the printable recipe is below. If you're a returning friend that enjoys my canning videos, you can automatically receive my canning recipes straight to your inbox each time I post a video. Now it's strictly the recipe post where I go a bit more into depth about things. It's not a newsletter. If you've already signed up, the recipe, full blog post, pictures, and video is already in your inbox. And when we get to the water bath instructions, don't stress about that either. We'll be following the sequence on my free download, so grab that too. Now I will meet you back here in a couple of minutes so we can talk about canning, safety, recipe tips, and a few of my recommendations. Now let's get started.
After thoroughly cleaning and rinsing your berries, be sure to take a few minutes to thoroughly inspect your berries. Discard cranberries that are shriveled, soft, wrinkled, or have surface blemishes. You only want to use berries that are brightly colored with smooth, glossy, and firm skin. Fresh cranberries typically keep in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. If kept longer, you will find a gradual deterioration of quality with more soft and bruised berries. Now, sometimes I like to use my blender to quickly rough chop the cranberries instead of having them simmer down whole, and a bit will add more textured ingredients, and it's just my preference to have varying dice sizes. Leaving all of the ingredients whole or deciding to dice them is truly a matter of preference. Now it's time to add our medley of flavorful ingredients. Y'all, this is truly where the magic happens because we'll add a combination of red onion and garlic, 2 meal starters that already yield incredible taste and aromatics. And then we'll add freshly grated ginger to lend a warming heat and spice. Transfer things to a medium warm burner, and to the pot you'll add fresh or dried pineapple and its juice, or orange juice and generous amounts of orange zest, which will add bright notes of sweet citrus that pair with cranberry amazingly. Now in this batch I added chopped dates, but if you don't have those on hand, golden raisins are another excellent option to lend sweetness and body. The variety of whole fruits we're adding are reducing the amount of granulated sugar. Now, vinegar is the preserving agent in this recipe, and it's a recipe that you want to lean more on the simmering, savory flavors. Add your water and sweet rice wine vinegar. As long as the vinegar isn't your homemade stuff and has an acidity of 5%, you can use white distilled, apple cider, or any other vinegars you prefer. Add your brown sugar and let things simmer for a few minutes with the lid on. After a few minutes and frequent stirring, return to your pot to add your spices. Cloves, cinnamon, chili flakes, dry mustard, pepper, and Worcestershire sauce are sensational combinations. I also couldn't resist steeping fresh rosemary to add some earthy aromatic notes. Since I'm using fresh rosemary from my garden, I'm using reusable heat-safe herb infusers to avoid leaving behind any woody stems or ends. Cover and let things simmer for about 10 minutes. While our sauce is simmering on the stove, I wanted to jump back in and share some of my recommendations. Because while canning is delicious, we also need it to be safe. As such, all the canning recipes that I share are from approved canning authorities like the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the National Center for Home Food Preservation, and companies like Ball and Bernardin. The recipe that I'm sharing with you today is one that I've adapted from one of my favorite canning recipe books. Blue Ribbon Canning, Jams, Preserves, Pickles, Sauces, and More by Linda J. Ament. This is such a fun canning book because it shares over 140 prize-winning recipes with gorgeous photos from live fair experiences across the United States. It also includes the personal stories from the Blue Ribbon Canning winners and fair folklore, so it feels like a narrative with the bonus of being a recipe book. The link to this book and its hundreds of raving reviews on Amazon is in the description box below. If you're a beginner canner, definitely add this to your arsenal. Okay, so I'm just gonna look down at some of my notes. These and a few other tips are on the blog. All right, so here's tip number 1, don't skip the sugar. Cranberries are extremely high in acidity. Only lemons and limes have more acid, which is why at least adding some sugar to get that mouth-watering tang of tartness and sweet is recommended. Now my recipe uses less sugar than the one recommended in this book. Now while I still use some sugar, I relied more on the sweetness factor from the dates and golden raisins and pineapple, and the sweet rice vinegar. And that combination lends sweetness than just using straight up sugar. You could also sub the sugar for equal amounts of honey or stevia. I've done honey, excellent results. Stevia, there's a bit of an aftertaste there that I notice. All right, tip number 2, no pectin, no problem. This recipe doesn't need it. So cranberries naturally contain a high level of pectin, and that's the chemical that causes things to gel when you're making your jellies and your jams. Just by combining fresh cranberries with water or orange juice, sugar, and heating until the berries pop will automatically yield that classic sauce texture. Oh yeah, so this is an important one too. When zesting your orange, go slow and be sure that you're only collecting the outer peel. The rind is where all the essential oils and the flavor is found. You do not want to scrape off the white pith since that will only give you a bitter taste. Now, admittedly for this recipe, I am very heavy-handed on the zest because it just brightens this dish considerably. So start off with what I recommended, but then definitely feel free to amp it up. Another tip is that while this recipe uses fresh cranberries, you can totally substitute frozen, dried, or your own home canned cranberries. Admittedly, my bias for food preservation is canning. But if you enjoy cooking with cranberries all year round, they freeze absolutely beautifully, which is why it's a great idea to stock up on them when they're in season, because all you have to do is just toss those bags in the freezer. And when you're ready to use them, just empty the frozen berries into a colander and sift through to remove any stems or shriveled berries. So another tip that I have is that this is a really fun recipe to play with the texture. Sometimes you want a steak sauce that is really smooth, so I'll add more water, not less than what the recipe recommends, but I've done that before. But then other times I want it a bit chunky, so I'll take the sauce and pour out about half and I'll blend that up until it's smooth, but then I'll leave some of those chunks of the dates and the raisins just to give it extra body. You do have a little bit of leeway here as long as you are not going underneath the recommended amounts of liquid. This is your apple or orange juice that you may be using, this is your water, and these are your vinegar levels, because that is what is going to determine the viscosity and the time that has been determined for this recipe to be safely preserved. And my final tip as always is to lick the spoon. This is the heart of why having your own canning pantry is so life-changing. You've got to feel free to play around with the seasonings until it gets to exactly where you want it. So review my recipe, tweak things a little, but as long as you don't add milk or dairy to this recipe, you're good to go. Oh yeah, you can even add nuts. That's all I've got. Let's head back to the stove. Would you just look at this ruby red goodness you've just created? It's now time to grab sterilized jars and preserve this on the stove. I enjoy using a canning lid rack to quickly stack multiple lids and rings simultaneously. Next, take a tall pot and line it with a jar rack or tray and lower your canning lid rack and jars inside of boiling water for 5 minutes. Remove your now sterilized lids, rings, and jars and grab a funnel to ladle your steak sauce into the jars, leaving a 1/4 inch of headspace. You'll also want to remove any air bubbles by running a long plastic or wooden skewer between the jar and the sauce, as well as wipe up the rims of the jars with vinegar to remove any spillage, which can prevent your jars from creating a seal. After this, you'll place new lids on top of the jars and secure the lid with the ring until it's fingertip tight. Secure, but still allows enough air to pass through. Then lower the jars onto the tray and into your water bath canner. Pour in enough water to ensure that the water covers at least an inch above your jars. Place the lid on top of the pot and bring the water to a full boil for 10 minutes. Use a jar lifter to remove any rings out of the water and let them cool on a towel undisturbed for a minimum of 8 to 10 hours. You can confirm the jars have sealed by removing the rings. Use your index finger to tap on the jar in a few places. It should not pop back up when pressed and be slightly indented in the center. The majority of your jars will seal within a few hours of cooling down. If you have any jars that didn't seal properly, just store them in the fridge and use them within the month.
Check out the description box to get recipe videos and canning printables straight to your inbox. To get more canning recipes and help learning to use your home can pantry, consider joining me here weekly. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon. Take care, friends.